This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, we look at how one county got their farmers to market. And was last week's rain too little, too late? And with barbecue season in full bloom, you might want to introduce yourself to Karen. All that and much more on a Field Fresh edition of the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. Well, it was too nice to be in the studio today, so we came on out here to the Dallas farm to check out in person how the crops are going. The rain came just in the nick of time, albeit a little bit less than we wanted, and albeit a little bit late, but certainly the plants don't mind, and I don't think we'll find a farmer who cares about that at all. I called a lot of our crop guys this week, and they report anywhere from 3/10 to 1/8 of an inch of rain, and I don't think any farmer is going to refuse a drop. So plants are looking good, everything's looking fine, we're on our way. But the rain made me think that, was it too little too late? A lot of us were concerned that the hot, dry weather this spring had already caused damage to the corn crop. Well, Todd Gleason at the U of I says, maybe not.
The Illinois corn crop was put into the ground about 3 weeks ahead of schedule this year, and that's just about how the weather's been acting. The month of May was the 5th warmest on record in Illinois, with just 57% of the normal rainfall amounts. Still, the corn crop, when compared to the bellwether year of 2004, is doing better than it did in that record-setting good year.
Well, we've had good crop ratings before. I went back to 1988, and they were very high at the end of May in 1988. And of course, we ended up with the lowest yield we've had in the last 30 years. I guess the quick answer is the crop ratings don't mean very much. The correlation certainly between the ratings at the end of May or early in the season and final yield is certainly not very good at all.
What is good this year is how the Illinois corn crop has gone into the ground. It's tall, green, and beautiful. However, there are concerns, especially in the driest areas where the root systems have not been able to find moisture. A little rainfall will go a long way to fix that problem.
The growth of the crop right now is a great indicator of how well it's supplied with water. And because we're in Illinois, our soils are capable of providing a lot of water to the crop. So those corn plants that have their roots tapped into the water supply are really in pretty good shape at this point. But obviously we don't have enough stored water to carry the crop through the whole season. And the real concern is in sort of the next month. Is it going to rain and give us a boost in that water supply so we can get the crop through pollination without undue stress?
So a drier spring is not bad news for the corn crop unless it turns into a droughty summer. For University of Illinois Extension, I'm Todd Gleason.
Well, we might be hip high by the 4th of July at this rate, but how is the rest of the state doing? Here with the news is Monica Becker. Monica?
Thanks, Fred. I'm Monica Becker. Farmers were singing in the rain. Statewide, we saw 7/10 of much-needed moisture, although locally, we saw a little less than that on average. But what we did see helped the crops. The USDA reports that 100% of the corn and 91% of the soybean crops have emerged, continuing the early in and early up that we've seen this year. Average corn height is reported at 19 inches, 6 inches higher than last week. A very few lucky wheat farmers have started to harvest, with 84% of the wheat crop turning yellow and 57% ripe statewide. In our district, the East-Southeast, we are at 100% corn and 97% soybeans emerged. Average corn height here is 28 inches. As far as moisture, we saw an average of a ½ inch of rain, and our growing days are at 639 since May 1st. Topsoil in our area is reported as 10% very short, 49% short, and 41% adequate. Now, depending on where you stand on the gestation stall issue, might mean choosing between a sausage pizza and a Big Mac. Last week, Domino Pizza announced that it would not require pork producers to phase out the small pens for pregnant sows called gestation stalls. This week, McDonald's reconfirmed that they will no longer buy any pork products from suppliers that use gestation stalls after 2022. The company added that within 5 years, it will only buy pork from producers who promise to phase out the practice. The National Pork Producers Council, while disappointed in McDonald's decision, acknowledged that at least the company is willing to work with producers in phasing in a new production model. McDonald's announcement came on the heels of Kroger announcing that they will begin to no longer buy pork from suppliers who use the gestation stall systems. Their announcement also warned consumers that the transition may take many years. Now, while the gestation stalls in your barn might be worth less, the ground it is sitting on might be worth more. The 7th Federal Reserve District reported that Midwest farmland values are continuing to rise, about 8% more in Illinois from the first of the year and over 20% from over a year ago. District cash rental rates for farmland also climbed 17% in 2012. Before long, you might be putting your acreage in your lockbox. With this being cookout season, everyone is a grilling expert. How do you settle those "is it done" questions? With your phone, of course. And the USDA has released a new smartphone app to help people with food safety questions. It's called Ask Karen.
In the grocery store and need to know food prep times and procedures? The answers are as close as your smartphone with mobile Ask Karen.
So say you're at the meat counter and you want to cook a steak for dinner that night, but you're not quite sure how high you're supposed to cook it. Maybe if you're going to have enough time to cook it, you can look it up and Ask Karen. Mobile Ask Karen has food safety information on all types of food. You can actually search through her database of over 1,300 questions. You can sort by pork, by chicken, by beef, by even vegetables. You can also live chat with a specialist. Anything you want to know about food safety, how high you're supposed to cook something, to what temperature.
U.S. Department of Agriculture, Food Safety, and Inspection Service personnel were at a Washington, D.C. grocery store spreading the word to shoppers about mobile Ask Karen.
We want people using Mobile Ask Karen on the go, so a grocery store is a perfect example of where we want people using her. You just go to m.askkaren.gov. If you have an Android, you can download the app from the App Store. If you have an iPhone, we recommend just adding it to your home screen. It's an easy way to bookmark. You can still tap it. It'll take you directly to the site.
And mobile Ask Karen comes in handy at cookouts to answer food prep questions.
There are always times when you're out at a cookout and people have different opinions on when you're supposed to take those burgers off the grill. It's helpful to have Karen there with you. You can look her up. She's on the go. You don't have to go to your computer or call anyone. You've got your answer right in your hand.
For more information, go to askkaren.gov. In Washington, D.C., for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, I'm Bob Ellison.
Now, why is she named Karen? Might have something to do with the fact that women are always right. Back to you, Fred.
Well, thanks, Monica. Well, just about everybody I talked to this year says it's been a strange season, and so I thought I'd talk to somebody who has a few seasons under his belt. Les Dallas has been farming this part for longer than you care to remember, right?
Quite a while.
Okay, Les. So has this been a strange growing year?
It's been a strange growing year. It was dry to start with, and crops got in early, and then we got no rain, and we had crops beginning to look pretty sorry from lack of moisture.
Right, they were curling up a little bit,
So that way it's been a strange year.
Yeah, so now we got a little bit of rain, and hopefully we'll get a little bit more coming up. But so has this been the strangest year you've seen?
No, we've had years of couldn't get the crops out in the fall, and you end up trying to harvest with snow on the ground.
Oh my goodness.
Which is no fun. And we've had flood damage, and river bottom crops has been lost from floods. So each year is just a little different scenario.
So tell me about the season with the snow. What happened in that setup?
Well, you'd go in January, and you'd combine while the ground was froze.
You couldn't get in that fall?
No.
Until January?
And when the ground thawed at 10:30 or 11, you had to quit.
Oh, wow.
So you'd just do that for a couple of hours or three.
Yeah, so you farm, you don't have to tell me the exact number of acres, but how much of your land is lowland?
Oh, there's 180 acres or something of cropland in the bottom.
Okay,
We've got.
so you got a sizable investment in that low land.
Yes, sir.
Do you take any special precautions when you plan on planting that? Or you just wait for the ground to firm up and then go?
You try to plant it a little later, and you don't put your fertilizer on too soon, because if it floods, well, the fertilizer leaches away. So,
Right.
So You just have to play a little bit of a waiting game with it there.
So is that one of the hardest things for a young farmer to learn, the patience of waiting to the right moment?
Yes, because you see somebody else's equipment going, then you think you should be out there too.
Of course you should. Of course you should. So tell me a little bit, your crop, is this a good height for this time of year, or is this ahead of schedule for you?
Yeah, we'll be ahead of schedule.
So
on
by
the
a couple
average,
weeks?
I would say at least a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks ahead of schedule.
So when do you normally harvest?
Late September,
Late September, so you're looking at early September this year.
probably, the way it's
Okay.
started.
Have you put in beans?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how are your beans looking?
They're looking good.
They're looking good. They've all emerged.
They've all emerged and evenly
Okay.
emerged, so they look pretty good.
No bald spots, eh?
Not
Sensitive
no.
topic with me.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so you got the corn and you got the beans in. It's looking good. Have you had seasons where the insects were a horrible problem?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But they've got such good insecticides now that basically anything can be controlled.
Okay.
You just have to be able to pay for it.
Yeah. Paying is the tough part.
That's
Finding
the
the
tough
bugs
part.
are not bugs.
And that's not it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Les. I appreciate you talking to us, and good luck with the rest of your season here.
Very good. We thank you.
With me today is Jason Connor. He's from Martinsville, and he acted as the farmers market advisor for the Clark County Farm Market group, right?
That's correct.
Okay, close enough for government work, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and Jason, you helped organize the Clark County Farmers Market. First of all, what did Clark County want with a farmers market?
Well, Clark County is a small rural community. As you know, we have 5 towns that work together in some cases, and in other cases have high school football rivalries and things like that. And one thing that Clark County has in common is the National Road and I-70, and we had a National Road Festival that involves Martinsville, Marshall, and Casey. And we decided one day that after we had all tried to plan a farmer's market at the same time during that event, that it would be beneficial for our producers in the county and beneficial for our residents to coordinate efforts to have a farmer's market.
So 3 towns decided to have a farmer's market on the same day at the same time?
Virtually, yes. Yeah.
And, and nobody made money, right?
And nobody was very successful in their endeavors. Yeah.
So how did you get these football rivals, those darn Casey people, how did you get them to work together so that everybody got the benefits of a farmer's market?
Well, everybody wanted the farmers ultimately to be successful,
right,
and to have a good event in the county, and working together to advertise those events so that everybody has a happy vendor and a happy buyer seemed to be the ultimate goal. So we scheduled a meeting with all the farmers and community leaders from each town, and had some brainstorming.
So you decided to form this group.
Yes.
And how did you get the towns and the vendors to cooperate? What did you come up with?
Well, our scheme was that in order for local people to be able to buy local goods and not have to drive to Terre Haute or to Charleston like the vendors do themselves, that we would have a rotating farmers market.
Okay.
So that we would advertise together, and that each community would be able to have the benefit of having an event of that nature in their town.
So you spread out the markets the same, once one town gets it one weekend a month, is that right?
That's correct. We decided to have them on Friday evening so that on the people's way home from work that they could pick up their goods and things for the weekend to have picnics or parties of that nature. And then as a result, we would rotate that every Friday evening in the different communities in the county.
So Martinsville gets it one week and Casey gets it another week, and so on and so forth, correct?
Correct, yeah.
What towns participate now?
We have Westfield, West Union, Martinsville, Casey, and Marshall.
Okay, so you got 5 towns rotating this around. How did you get the vendors involved?
The vendors were on board right away because
Okay.
they saw the need to help their communities and to get their products to the local
Plus, it
people.
wasn't, being on a Friday afternoon, it wasn't competing with the bigger markets elsewhere, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So you marketed a different time, you marketed a different location close to home, so they didn't have to. Where are the vendors from?
Most of the vendors come from right in Clark County, actually.
Okay.
We have some that come from surrounding counties and some into Indiana, but most of them are called Clark County home.
Okay, so you got the vendors on board and you got the towns on board. What were some of the things the group had to worry about in setting this up?
We wanted to make sure that we weren't conflicting with other events that already happened in the community. The Marshall has the Autumn Fest, and Martinsville has the 4-H barbecue and the fair, Martinsville Fair, and Casey has the Popcorn Fest and other things.
Okay.
So we looked at those dates so that our venue wouldn't conflict with other things that were
Okay.
going on. And in some cases, the towns wanted them to correspond.
Okay,
so
that makes
it
a
would
lot
be
of sense.
collaborative event to have one more thing going on
Okay.
in the town that day.
Okay, where did you find out about the rules and regs that govern farmers market? Because there are things you need to be concerned about.
That's very true. We were fortunate to work with the Clark County Health Department that gave us some bulletins that come out from our state government that give the guidelines for things that you can sell.
Right.
And actually, recently, they've had a cottage food industry bill that's passed.
Right. We've talked
which-
about that.
Which has helped some of the people do things out of their own home and help them support themselves in that fashion.
I know that the Extension Office has a website. Talked to Dave Shiley about this recently, about things you should think about when setting up a farmer's market. Did that sort of thing, that information help you, that on the web and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, Tiffany Mackey in Marshall, who's the Clark, Edgar, and Crawford representative for our area, gave us some information on how to get started, and we took that and kind of ran with it.
Okay, so you got the rules and regs, you got the farmers on board, you got the towns finally in line, you market it so it's not conflicting with other stuff. And you've been doing this now for a couple of years.
Yeah.
What lessons did you guys learn for running these events? What things should you be thinking about if another county were to thinking about setting up something like this?
Right. Well, we had to look at the venues of different towns. Some of the venues, like the one in Casey, for example, was at a town park, but it wasn't on a main traveled thoroughfare.
Okay.
So the vendors were a little bit discontent with the amount of traffic that they had, and so we changed that this
You
year.
didn't get the
for
Gawker traffic that
Right. Yeah.
turned off on there.
Right. So this year it's right on the main highway 49 in Casey.
So if it didn't take place in a public space, you had to worry about liability issues. How did you work through those?
In each town, we had to identify an area that was willing to host and work with them to see if it would meet their insurance requirements. And then we have a hold harmless agreement that the vendor signed that releases the committee members and the location.
Yeah, you don't want to get that phone call Friday night. Oops.
Right.
Yeah.
So the vendors take full responsibility for what
Okay.
they sell.
So the vendors are responsible for what they sell. The town is not liable for
The space.
the space. The committee members aren't going to get a subpoena in the middle of the night saying show up. So it's working out for everybody. It sounds like, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So how do the communities feel about A, hosting it, and B, doing it once a month? I mean, is that seen as a benefit or a curse?
It's been a real benefit to all of them, I would say. The senior citizens in some of the communities really feel fortunate to have that outlet for them to go and visit with their friends and to buy things that they themselves can't grow anymore.
So it really gives an added sense of community to these small towns.
Yes.
Okay. Well, excellent. Well, thank you very much, Jason. I've learned a lot about how, what's the name of your group again that organized the farmers
It's
market?
the Clark County Farmers Market Committee, and the market in Marshall is always on the first Friday. The market in Casey is always on the second Friday. The market in Westfield is always the third, Martinsville the fourth, and then 2 months throughout the summer, this month and September, we have 5 Fridays.
Okay.
So West Union actually only gets a market on the 5th,
Excellent, excellent.
twice this summer.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and I hope other communities think about how to better organize their farmers market.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, with the first of the month, we always look back. And Cameron Craig is dotting the I's and crossing the T's on May in this week's edition of Under the Four Rivers Sky.
The climate of May 2012 made some farmers nervous, while others were delighted with the nice warm days scattered throughout the month. The main reason farmers were on edge, and continue to be a little on edge, is due to the abnormally dry conditions that have set in here in central Illinois. Additionally, this May's average temperature tied with the warmest May on record set in 1962. Last year, May held near normal in temperature and precipitation. The average temperature of May 2011 was 64.6 degrees, putting it 0.7 degrees above the 30-year average. The total precipitation for the month was 4.34 inches, which was 0.05 above the 30-year average. The average temperature for this May was 71.7 degrees, putting it 7.8 degrees above the 30-year average of 63.9 degrees. There were 5 days when the maximum temperature reached above 90 degrees. For most of the month, the maximum temperature stayed above 80 degrees, with a few days only reaching into the 70s. The daytime high started in the low 80s and increased to 89 degrees on the 6th. Temperatures fell from the 8th to 72 degrees on the 10th. From the 13th to the 18th, the daytime highs hovered in the lower 80s and upper 70s. On the 19th, we hit our first 90-degree temperature for the month, and the temperature hit 91 degrees on the following day, and then 89 degrees on the 21st. A cold front moved through, dropping the daytime high to 76 degrees on the 22nd, and again warmed up into the upper 80s and lower 90s for the Memorial Day weekend. The temperatures fell slightly into the mid-80s on the 29th and 30th, and dropped again on the last day of May with a daytime high of 76 degrees. Precipitation for the month was recorded at 1.69 inches, which was 2.6 inches below the 30-year average of 4.29 inches. There were only 2 days when the rainfall was significant. The first day of May, the total was 0.73 inches, and the last day with 0.52 inches. Any precipitation that fell and soaked the ground quickly dried up due to the warm daytime temperatures, as well as the overwhelmingly number of days with mostly sunny skies. Across the central portion of the Midwest, average temperatures for May were between 3 and 9 degrees above average, and to the north slightly closer to the 30-year average. In regards to precipitation, the lower accumulations left a band from northern Arkansas to southern Michigan, with higher amounts in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and in Kentucky and Ohio. As for the drought situation, the beginning of the month of May there was a band of abnormally dry conditions across the northern portion of Illinois. As of this review, 86% of the state is abnormally dry, with a small pocket of moderate drought conditions in the central portion and severe drought conditions in the south. El Niño Southern Oscillation conditions remained neutral through the month of May that followed the dissipation of La Niña conditions during the winter season and early spring. The Climate Prediction Center states that there is a 50% chance that El Niño conditions will develop during the second half of 2012. As for the month ahead, June is expected to be above average in temperature, with precipitation holding near normal. What we can hope for this month are several days with rainfall, with low rainfall rates to help reverse the dry conditions throughout the state. In the meantime, keep your fingers crossed.
And finally this week, researchers are finding out what chicken farmers known for quite a while. You can tell how your chickens are feeling by how they cluck. Researchers at University of Georgia and Georgia Tech are studying the relationship between how much noise and the type of noise chickens are making and the well-being of the flock. They're finding out that chickens are particularly vocal, and they make certain sounds and certain volumes of sounds when the group is feeling well or not. So theoretically, you can figure out whether or not your chickens are happy and gaining weight, or if they're miserable and it's going to take a long time to get to market. But one thing they won't tell you is when they want to go to market. For that, you won't get a peep out of them. Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report. You know, on the Four Rivers Ag Report, we're always looking for news that is of interest to the agricultural and the rural communities. Every week we scour the local papers, the state and national websites. We talk to lots and lots of people every day looking for information that will help and or entertain you. There is one more way that we can find out the latest news, topics, trends, and events that are part of your life. You can tell us. We'd love to hear from you about what's going on in your town, on your farm, or even on your neighbor's farm. If you got a topic you'd like us to talk about, let us know. I probably won't know the answer, but I probably know people who do. Please let us know what is happening. You can call us at 217-581-7245. You can email us at weiu@weiu.net. We're on Facebook at WEIU TV, Public Broadcast Station. And if you tweet, we're on Twitter at WEIU1. So now that you got our number, don't be a stranger.